Hi guys, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about Liz's mental health diagnosis, is that right?
Yep.
And what's that meant for her? Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. Well, Liz, you haven't been, when you've gone into jobs, you haven't necessarily told everyone everything about yourself.
Yep.
So what have you said?
I've said, at the interview stage, I've said I've got a lived experience of mental illness and recovery.
Yeah. And you left it at that.
Yep.
Do you talk more about that or?
As time goes on in the job, I usually open up to my colleagues, but not really to my management.
Yeah. So that's all you say, so they don't have any red flags.
Mm-hmm.
So you've left it at that, so they know you've had issues in the past with mental health, but you don't make them feel that put that at the forefront of their mind, and you've let yourself speak for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're willing to talk about your mental health diagnosis today?
Yeah.
Who do you let in on this?
My friends.
Your friends. So if you're close to someone, you'll tell them. Otherwise, you don't want the stigma.
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
Mm-hmm. I don't want the prejudice.
Yeah. So what is your diagnosis?
Bipolar.
And when did you first receive that diagnosis?
2 years out of school.
And was that your first diagnosis?
No.
So can you just explain the journey you were on to get to
Yeah,
that?
so when I finished high school, I was school captain and I had good grades in school. And then it all came crashing down, but I held it together as much as I could until the last exam, and the next day was the school formal, and I had a speech on that day. But I just felt really weird saying that speech at the end, and then it all just came crashing down, and I got a diagnosis that week at the end of that week of severe depression.
Okay. And did you give that speech normally?
Yeah, I gave it normally, but I just internally.
So there wasn't anything weird about it?
No,
You just felt wrong?
On reflection.
Like you were holding something up.
Yeah, something was bubbling and I wasn't feeling...
like you were just in the mind of get this done.
Yeah.
And okay.
Hold it together.
Yeah. And then something cracked?
Yeah, and I think it was just, it's all over, but it doesn't feel like it's all over. I don't have that release valve. It just felt like I still have to be anxious. Now I've got to get a full-time job because there's the Centrelink rules that you have to have a certain number of hours and a certain amount of money brought in so that you can get independence, so that when you go to uni you're an independent person.
Yeah.
That was all. I was like, on to the next. You got to keep up your guard. You can't go and have fun.
And what happened was when you actually got it time to breathe, you panicked, or?
Well, when I got time to breathe after, so my last HSE exam was one of the days, and then the next day was the school formal.
Yeah.
And so the last day of my exams, I drove with Mum to Orange because she had a specialist appointment there, and then the next day we went to the formal.
Yeah.
So everything was just bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And then I felt like most people would go on school leaves then, or they'd at least have a breather. But I was just looking for jobs. I need to get a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were just on
the next.
On the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then so
you're almost too focused on career and the importance of that, or
it wasn't
excelling, or
it was just I know the next step is I'm going to go to uni the year after. So in order to go to uni and get Centrelink, I need to get a job, and in order to get a job, I have to make sure it's full time to meet the criteria of living as an independent.
So a lot of people at that age would be they'd be muffing things up, as in they wouldn't know what's next, and they wouldn't be very organised. But you were you were over organised.
Yeah.
You were ready and
too
pumped. And when did it all come crashing down?
As soon as the formal was over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there tears? What was it about?
No, I couldn't speak.
Yeah.
So I kept on repeating certain phrases and just was stuttering, and I couldn't speak clearly or eloquently.
Were you right at the formal? Were you normal?
Yeah, I was normal at the formal.
Wow.
I went to like an after party, and I was kind of like partying, but still felt a bit weird. But then like, once I got home to normality, then I couldn't.
So
speak.
when you were with your parents,
Yeah.
and they were the ones handling you at the time
Yeah.
or being around you.
Oh well, I was living with my parents. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did they take that?
They didn't know what was happening either.
Yeah.
So we went to the doctor.
Yeah.
And then the doctor said I've got depression, and then at some stage soon after that they said I've got depression and anxiety. They put me on to community mental health, and community mental health said you'll have to go to either, you've got a choice of either, because your parents have private health insurance, you can go to a private hospital in Sydney for your mental health treatment, or you can go to the public system, but we really wouldn't recommend that because it's just really, it's scary usually for young women going there.
Yeah.
So they really suggested strongly to use mum and dad's private health cover and to go to the private hospital.
And did you get worse over that period? Did they medicate you or?
Yeah, so I was on, like, that didn't happen straight away, but it happened soon enough. But I was on medication as soon as they diagnosed me with depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what medication did they put you on?
Zyprexa. That was the intention of that was to level me out, not to be ongoing.
Okay. But what was your diagnosis?
Depression.
But they give you Zyprexa?
Yep, so they said that would just rearrange my thoughts to be more clear.
Okay, so you had jumbled thoughts and...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it seemed like that because I couldn't speak.
Okay.
I think my thoughts were still normal, but I couldn't get them out.
And so I know where I'm focusing on the first part, and there's a long story here.
Yeah.
We might have to make a few videos.
Yeah.
But what was that experience like at the mental health facility? Did you get better or?
I was only in there for 2 weeks, and it was a fantastic facility. But because I was not used to any institutions other than school, like I had no idea what to expect. I'd never been to hospital for anything. Like I had perfect health, so I'd never had to be in a normal hospital, let alone a mental health hospital.
Yeah.
And they had great programs, but it was full on. Like I was tired from the medication, and it was compulsory to attend like mindfulness, and it was compulsory to attend like psycho-education classes and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay. And when you come out of that, how did you go?
I did find a job, and
so things went well for a while.
I was put on antidepressants when I was probably just before or during that time that I was at the mental health hospital in Sydney, and then the antidepressant probably tipped me over, and I became too
depressed.
No, tipped me over.
Too
elevated.
Too elevated. So so what happens with someone with bipolar if they like are a little too enjoying themselves? Oh, that's not the right words, but you explain it.
Yeah, well, I guess because I was on antidepressants, but I probably at some point because I was undiagnosed with bipolar at that stage, but being on antidepressants, it probably swung me into the manic phase. More readily.
So what's manic?
For me, manic is elevated mood, heightened sense of reality in terms of like grandiose ideas, thinking thoughts about myself that I've got like great self-worth and self-esteem, and talking quickly, being reckless and irresponsible at times, sexual promiscuity, spending money recklessly, just not having the consequential kind of thinking.
So you weren't really in the real world. Your boundaries weren't there, and
yeah.
Okay, so you got a job, and then this happened.
Yeah. That was a retail job.
Yeah, retail job.
Yeah.
And did you end up back in an institution or?
Yeah. So then, what happened next? I never went back to that private hospital because when I was over 8, that was before I was 18, but when I was over 18, I wasn't covered by the private health under my parents anymore. Yeah. So I had to, the next time I was hospitalised, it was through the public system in Dubbo.
Yeah.
So at that stage, there was an element of psychosis involved. Yeah. The next time I was hospitalised, so they misdiagnosed me as being schizophrenic at that time. or having schizophrenia.
And what sort of psychosis? Like what's going on there with?
Yeah, so at that time, I can't remember the exact first time because it was a bit hard to remember, but definitely one of the times that I was hospitalised, I was thinking that. I'm just trying to think which one it was, just to be clear. One of the times I thought that someone in my life was going to harm me, was trying to poison my food, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Even though that was no evidence for that, that was not the case.
So your diagnosis was it schizophrenia at that stage, or?
Yeah.
Or
and then I
so
went.
What happened after that?
And then so that was all before the start of so that was all during the gap year type time, and then I went to uni at Newcastle and went to study communications, and I just was there for a semester because at the end of that semester, the GP there got me connected. Well, actually, the community mental health in Dubbo got me connected with the community mental health in Newcastle.
Yeah.
And I was with a young psychosis program there.
Yeah.
And the psychiatrist there said to me, not to me, but said to the caseworker who said to my GP that I was seeing in Newcastle, said, this girl does not have schizophrenia. She's got bipolar.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's great. And what was her title? That person who got it right.
The psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Okay. But you'd seen other psychiatrists, hadn't you?
Yeah.
So, what happened after you were diagnosed with bipolar?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that made them realise it was bipolar rather than schizophrenia was I kept on saying to them, I'm doing all these things, but it's not falling into line with my values.
Mm.
And I was saying, I'm doing this, but I don't want to do it. And the caseworker was just saying, oh, well, you're young, you're just exploring, you're working out what's boundaries and what's not.
Yeah.
But then she fed that back up to the psychiatrist, and I hadn't even seen the psychiatrist, and before the psychiatrist even interviewed me, they said, they said, I know that this person's got bipolar, just from that, yeah. And then they interviewed me, and then that was readily apparent.
Yeah, and so you saw that person?
Yeah, just once, yeah.
And how long did you stay in Newcastle before you come home?
Oh, a couple of weeks at the most.
Yeah, and then you got worse, or you realised that you
weren't coping? It was the end
of
the semester. It just all coincided with the end of the semester.
So you went home and you stayed home.
I went home and thought about whether I'd go back for semester 2, but I just deferred and then ended up just canning it.
And then what happened after that?
I went back to my retail job and was pretty manic at different times.
Yeah.
And depressed at other times and psychotic at other times.
And what was, at that stage, what were the cycles? Were they like over what sort of periods?
It was months.
Months?
Yeah.
So you'd go high and then a month later or 2 months later you'd go low?
Yeah.
And you sort of stayed low longer than you stayed high at that stage, did you?
Yeah.
And so that after that job, because you got a degree in the end, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what was the transition to that? How did you manage that?
Well, I still had in my head that I wanted to do something outside of retail. I wanted to kind of have some sort of career or some sort of career progression or something. And so I thought I want to work as a youth worker. And so I went to the local TAFE and said I want to study youth work. This is the following year after I started the communications degree and just called that quits.
Mm.
And the head teacher there saw my potential and said, oh, why don't you do the degree program of social work as well as co-enrolled with the diploma of community services work, because I think you've got it in you that you can do this.
They could see that you could manage TAFE fairly well and they thought you could handle uni.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so what was that 4 years like you're at uni?
Yeah. So I was there for 4.5 years in the end because I had to make up some subjects at the end.
Because you're hospitalised?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just a tumultuous time.
The whole thing was difficult?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got through it. You actually got a degree out of that.
Yeah, well, there was plenty of times where I was so depressed that I'd just be able to study in a very shallow way, there
just
wasn't...
tick the boxes.
Yeah, as in what I mean was like, because I had nothing else going on. That was my focus.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't have friends to fall back on. I didn't have parties to go to. I just study.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of things going in because I was so stunted by my medication and I was depressed enough that it wasn't going in anyway. So.
And how did you feel at that stage? Like, you're obviously working towards the future, but did you feel you had a future? Like,
Sometimes there was a lot of. I think I was just working, even though I was like in a way working towards the future. I was really just trying to keep my head above water. So every kind of time the semester ended, I was like, okay, will I quit now or will I keep going to the next semester? Because I had the co-enrolled TAFE with the degree. I was always like, will I pull out at the end of the first year and get a certificate full? Will I pull out at the end of the second year and get a diploma? Or will I pull out at the end of the 4 years and get the degree? Like, I was always trying to think, I might not make this through.
And were your parents helping you along with that? Or?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How did they help you?
Literally, like with my coursework, like Dad and Mum would try and help me read my resource, like my coursework.
Yeah.
Resource materials. And try and explain that to me because I was just a bit jumbled at times.
Yeah, so they kept you on track.
They'd read my assignments and maybe just say this doesn't make sense or you need to explain this a bit better.
Yeah.
Help edit stuff.
And during the breaks of uni,
yeah.
when you were questioning whether you should be at uni,
yeah.
Did they help you to stick at it or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just
very
encourage
encouraging
you.
To, you can do this. Just keep trying to do another semester worth. Just keep going.
So you got your degree.
Yep.
Was that before or after you met me?
So we met in when I met you, I hadn't finished my degree yet.
Okay.
But I was nearly finished.
Yeah, and I met you when you were hospitalised.
Yeah, when we were both patients in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, we're going to do a video
stellar
on
of a
this.
story.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tragedy, but hope at the end. Hold out for it.
Yeah.
And then, so you got so were we married when you got your uni degree done?
I had just graduated, and then got a job, and then we got married.
Yeah, so you started your job.
Yeah.
And because you'd done so well in HSC, like top marks sort of thing, and with your uni degree, did that reflect that initial marks that you got, or was that just got by? Like you?
I still got a couple of awards, but they generally it wasn't at the high level that my Year 12 was.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
But it was enough that you got a really good paying job.
Yeah.
To the point where you questioned my loving you, the reason for me loving you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my motivations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though you came before the job came. But
yeah, and I wasn't really worried about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so you started your job, we got married.
Yeah.
And then you only got hospitalised once after that, didn't you?
And that wasn't it wasn't in a
it was in a
subacute
like that's just like you've got more freedom there. It's not like a prison.
It's not an acute mental health unit. No.
Where you feel like yeah. Because it's hard in that situation.
Yeah. So there was a week there since we've been married for almost 10 years. There's been 1 week where I've been at a subacute mental health facility. Yeah. Yeah.
But you've spent a lot of time in that time. You still go through your cycles, don't you?
Yeah.
As someone with bipolar,
yeah,
you'll go up, and then if you've had a job at that time, you just sort of excelled at it.
Yeah, but it's more a hypomanic phase rather than a manic phase.
Yeah, like you're not stupid. You don't.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the wrong word to use. You're not doing the wrong thing. You're doing the right thing, just at an elevated level.
Yeah.
And then suddenly that'll turn and you'll head downhill.
Yeah.
And then everything gets so much harder.
Depressed, anxious, unsure of myself, lack of confidence.
Yeah.
It all comes crashing down.
Yeah, when you're like, you're above the normal level. When you're in a, what's it called? Hypermanic phase. Yeah. So you didn't really get, by the time we got together, you'd just been in a proper manic phase, but I saw the end of that when we first met. So you're a bit strange, but yeah, I could still see you're a wonderful girl.
Yeah.
And then we met again afterwards. But then after that, you go to your depressive phase, and then you go to hypermanic, then go back to depressive phase. And it was only that time you got into the subacute unit that I saw you where you weren't sleeping, were you?
No.
And you started. I seen that you weren't in reality, or you were babbling, or
because I had postpartum thyroiditis.
Yeah.
So my thyroid was playing up, and then that changed my sleep habits, and then that affects like my sleep. My sleep is both an early warning sign that things aren't going right if I'm not having much sleep, but it's also a trigger.
Yeah.
Triggering the mania.
So that's your main trigger, that lack of sleep.
Yeah.
And so you'll go in a hypermanic phase, but then you won't sleep enough.
Yeah.
That'll drop you, and then you'll just drop.
What do you mean?
You'll go into a depressive phase.
No, I won't go into a depressive stage because of not getting enough sleep. I'll go into a hypermanic phase and then a manic phase for not getting enough sleep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because of the cycles.
Yeah.
Because of the cycles, I'll drop to a depressed phase.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
And
then when I'm depressed, then I sleep a lot because I need to catch up.
Yeah, like you'll have day sleep and you need extra love and you're not quite sure of yourself and so but you're in a good stage at the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem too hypermanic.
No.
You thought your speech was pretty fast just then, but in general, you're pretty well right. You seem to be going well.
Yeah.
But chances are you'll drop back down to a
depressive episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you're loving life at the moment. That's good. And is there anything else you want to tell people with the illness that you want to explain to them? That you can impart on them to, like something about when you were first diagnosed, how you felt or something, and how you feel now?
I guess I have had a few successes and wins despite having bipolar. So, I mean, the very fact that I worked in the industry that I was once a consumer in was really a great opportunity, and it showed that there's more to life than a diagnosis of an illness.
Yeah.
And I see even now that like my life's taken a bit of a different turn, that I'm a mother. Like, I guess there probably would have been people that would have known me back then that day thinking, oh, this girl should not have children, but knowing now that I am more stable to go, I can be a great mum and
Yeah. It's great. And what do you say for people who are in the lives of people with bipolar?
I guess just patience is the key, and self-care for yourself, but recognising that because like you see both ends of the spectrum generally being in the lives of someone with bipolar, you see the highs and you see the dramatic lows as well. Being aware of like making sure that the person that you love and care for is aware, and that you yourself as that person in their life knows their triggers, their early warning signs, their strategies. I think that's really helpful, and knows when there's risk situations or things that might risk their reputation or risk of safety and that sort of thing. Being aware of all that, so having a bit of a management plan in your head.
Yeah, and having a bit of knowledge around what's happening so you can combat it.
Yeah.
When things change.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I guess just that having bipolar is something that I haven't said very much publicly to people because I've been afraid of the stigma concerning that. And like even now, like I feel ready to say it on this channel and out in the big wide world web, well, you know, the big www.
Yeah.
World Wide Web, but I'm still a bit tender about it because I know that some people don't get it.
Yeah, and they won't treat you how they would have treated you if they didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a hard thing.
Yeah.
Can I give you a cuddle?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that.
That's okay.
Do you want to leave it at that?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Liz.